Hey everybody, welcome to episode 1 of the Jeff Lewis Trumpet Podcast.
This is the Jeff Lewis Trumpet Show with your host, Jeff Lewis, where we talk about music, jazz, and all things related to the trumpet.
Hey trumpet players, thank you so much for listening. Thanks for tuning in. I just want to give you a little bit of a background about me. I'm a trumpet player here in the San Francisco Bay Area in California, and I wanted to start this podcast so I could help other trumpet players get to where they want to be trumpet-wise quicker, faster, easier. So with that being said, let's jump into today's topic, which is going to be what I call Xtreme trumpet books. And these are books that I came across when I was initially starting to change my embouchure and started to go down that rabbit hole. And the reason I call them X books, Xtreme trumpet books, is because they're different than your average standard trumpet books, such as the Arbins or the Charles Collin or the Earl Irons or the St. Jacombs, etc. I needed something different. I found that I was playing the same exercises as everyone else, but I wasn't getting any better. I was just getting more tired. My chops were getting beat up. And that was all because I used to just press really hard. When I played, when I ascended into the upper register, I just crammed the horn down my throat. And that, as most of you know, is going to lead to swollen chops, endurance problems, range issues. Although my sound was fine, my range was fine, I was limited by how long I could play. So it was a huge problem. And eventually I got to the point I was starting to play more and more jobs and kind of move up the ranks. And I found a lot of holes in my playing, and I was like, okay, this has to stop. I have to try and find a new way of playing. I have to find an easier way of playing. So let's get to those 3 books. The 3 titles, the 3 books are in no particular order. The first one is Embouchure Self-Analysis by Roy Stevens. So you can go to the Roy Stevens tribute site, and there is a link and a set of videos done by one of his longtime students, Roy Roman. And Roy will show you some incredible things in regards to application of this book, Embouchure Self-Analysis. And basically in a nutshell, what Roy says is how the lower jaw acts as the rudder to the whole playing mechanism. I'm going to try to make a concise, consolidated version of this book in a couple seconds here. So he says basically your bottom teeth need to be aligned with your top teeth. So if you bring your jaw forward until both your bottom teeth and top teeth are aligned, that's how you should play. And then he says, he uses the pencil exercise as an example. The distance between the top teeth and the bottom teeth basically need to be the distance of, or the width rather, of a pencil. And if you look at these Roy Roman exercises, he gives you an example of the pencil exercise. He'll show you how to do that pencil exercise so that it sets up what they call the proper formation for trumpet playing. And all of this, at the time I checked it out, I was like, it seemed crazy. It's like, who plays like this? It feels so unnatural. But at this point, I had a really open mind. I was ready for anything. Because I had played for 30 years or so one way and never even analyzed what I was doing. I just played. And when I ran into a bunch of problems, I knew I had to change. I had to change something. And it wasn't the air. I mean, most of the trumpet teachers would always start with air. It's air. Air does everything. Yes, you cannot doubt the fact that, air is probably one of the most important things. But if your foundation is weak or inefficient, it doesn't really matter how much air or how efficient you are with the air, because your foundation is not going to accept the air in a way that's going to allow it to advance as far or as quick if your foundation is solid. So the Roy Stevens book is to recap, is really about getting the bottom jaw forward, creating some space between your teeth, and then staying like that through most of your registers. He also talks about rolling in the lips to a certain extent, but this is tricky because of the size of everybody's lips. Obviously, some people have thicker lips, some people have thin lips, and it really depends. What I really did get out of all of these books is that it's up to you as a player to learn from these exercises that you're being taught. Or maybe you're not being taught, you're just reading them out of a book, or maybe you're watching a tutorial online. And it's about stretching your abilities, on the embouchure, and learning from all the different movements that you're making within the embouchure. And I will probably never say you have to play like this or you must do this. Man, there are so many different embouchures and so many different concepts and so many different styles of playing that it's really just up to you. Trumpet is a funny instrument because unlike piano or guitar or flute, everything is hidden. You can't see inside your mouth. When I teach somebody else, I can get a general idea of what may be going on because of the way it looks and definitely by the way it sounds. But you're really teaching yourself because I can't see what your tongue's doing. I can't see how far apart your teeth are. I can't look at your tongue level, etc. I mean, everything's hidden behind the mouthpiece and inside your mouth. So really, we are left to our own devices as far as improvement is concerned. If you're playing the piano, I mean, every instrument has its own obstacles, but if you're playing the piano, let's say, for example, you can see if the fingers and the arms and your posture isn't quite correct. On the trumpet, however, like I said, it's all hidden. So that's where it becomes a really difficult instrument, not only to teach, but also to play, because you kind of left alone. Okay, the second trumpet book I want to talk about is by a gentleman named Jeff Smiley, and that book is entitled The Balanced Embouchure. And you can go to Jeff's website at trumpetteacher.net for more information. But I wanted to talk about how this book has really helped me and really helped my students in the fact that what this book does, it's almost like calisthenics for the trumpet. He has his concept is totally extreme in that what you do is you have what he calls roll-in exercises where you're going to be completely rolled in lip-wise, and you're going to start at the top end of your comfortable range, and sometimes even more, even when it's a little uncomfortable. And you're going to stretch the top notes down to the lower notes. And then what you're going to do is you have a separate set of exercises called the roll-out exercises, where you're going to start on a double pedal C, and you're going to move up into your regular playing range. So you are playing the extreme ends of your embouchure capabilities. Now, it's not really the exercises per se. It's what you learn from those exercises. How your chops react, how your jaw moves, how your tongue moves, how your lips move with inside the mouthpiece. And this has been huge with my students because I've had kids who cap out at a G above, above the top line, F, right? So just, high G, not double G, high G. And they've been stuck there for months and months and months. I mean, like 6 months to a year. And I was like, okay, when this happens, and I may even do it sooner, I take them through these roll in and roll out exercises. And I'm telling you, man, I had a student the other day who was a college student who struggled pretty much her whole career to hit a B flat above the staff to a high C. Now she can hit those notes, but you can tell just in the sound that it was a real struggle. I showed her this roll-in exercise, for example. At 8:30 in the morning, it was the first notes out of her horn, and she hit a high E above high C effortlessly. It was awesome. After that, she was like hitting E's and F sharps, and with very, very little effort, and she was just pasting the wall with them. Not that that's the end all be all, but what I want to happen is at this point, I want you to sit there and for them to scratch their head and go, whoa, wait a minute. Maybe there's an easier way to play, right? Now, it doesn't mean that this is going to be their embouchure, but it is going to start to change the way they think about playing, the way they use their jaw, their tongue, their air, their lips. So they start down this path of self-correction, which is, I think, the main thing you're going to get from these books. That's entitled, once again, The Balanced Embouchure. And Jeff's book comes with a CD, and you can see some of the pictures that he uses. There's some photographs of his students doing the roll out and the roll in exercises. And he also has some tonguing exercises, and he has a whole concept of lip slurs where you snap the top note, which isn't necessarily new. I think the Charles Collin book has that. But man, that it is a real game changer if you are struggling with range and endurance. Once again, I want to say, if you are, getting better and better, and you just play the Arbins and you play the regular set of, books that most people use, and things are going swimmingly, then obviously you didn't make it this far, probably in this podcast, and these books aren't really needed for you. But if you're an educator, you might want to do yourself a favor, because you are going to encounter students who just hit a wall. And if you're like me, you're just going to be left scratching your head going, man, I've tried every trick in my bag, and I cannot help these students for some reason. This gives you a whole bunch of new tools to put in your toolbox to help yourself if you're struggling, and to also help your students. All right, that brings me to the third book, and that is entitled The Cat Anderson Trumpet Method by Jeff Weinstead. And maybe many of you have encountered the Whisper G, and you've checked it out online. I'll give you a link to some of these YouTube videos that I'm talking about in the description and in the show notes. So this book was a trip. If any of you are familiar with Cat Anderson, he's an incredible, amazing trumpet player who seems to have effortless range and flexibility and endurance. I mean, he was the lead player for the Duke Ellington Orchestra for many years, and every time I see a video of him playing, my jaw drops to the ground. It's like, how can it be so easy for somebody to play that high for that long? It's really amazing. So you do yourself a favor and check out Cat Anderson if you're not familiar with him already. But getting back to this Cat Anderson trumpet method, the whole basis for this book is wrapped around what they call the whisper G. And in essence, what you do is sort of similar to the Embouchure self-analysis books by Roy Stevens, is that you are going to align your bottom and top teeth so that they're even. But in this case, unlike the Stevens book, you are not going to separate your teeth. You learn how to play a whisper G really softly. You're not even really playing the G. It's just you're whispering the note, almost what they call a subtone, while your teeth are together. I know that seems extreme, like we're talking about, but it is absolutely, you can do it. And once again, it starts to get that thought process, that mechanical, physical thought process on how your trumpet works in regards to how you approach playing and what you may or may not need to do as far as changing is concerned. So what happens is you learn how to play keeping your teeth together. Now, of course, you're not going to play normally with your teeth together, but this is just an extreme, once again, exercise that leads you down, hopefully, to a more efficient way of playing. And there's a bunch of exercises that Cat wrote himself that Jeff had put together, and he put it really well in his book, The Real Way to Play the Cat Anderson Method. And if you follow the exercises, it's going to seem really, really crazy. But if you're like me and you've kind of fed up with how all the limitations that you might be encountering and you're ready for something new, these are 3 great books to get you started down a different direction. Because if you're like me, I was playing the Schlossberg, the Arbans, the Clarks, the Collin, the Irons, all of those. And I was not getting better. I was just getting more and more tired. My chops were getting more and more beat up. And I was getting totally frustrated because I was putting in the time and doing gigs and, playing professionally and just not feeling like I was where I could be. And then I needed to go down this different path. All right, so that about does it for this first episode. I want to invite you to go to my website at jefflewistrumpet.com. And I've got a bunch of free stuff there. They are jazz related. They are trumpet related. I've got some jazz etudes. I have some exercises. I have some play-alongs. There are duets. There are tutorials. There are some jazz transcriptions. There are some jazz licks in all 12 keys. I want to invite you once again to come and check it out. If you subscribe to my email list, you will receive 11 Scales for Jazz Improvisation, which is a book that I put together. It has 11 scales that you would like maybe to check out and learn from, and hopefully this will help you. Be sure to check out the podcast in the future because I'm going to have a lot of interviews and some other tips. Hopefully they'll be helpful. All right. Thank you so much for listening, and we will catch you in the next show.
Thanks for listening to the Jeff Lewis Trumpet Podcast at www.jefflewistrumpet.com.